Welcome to Smash Fiction, a podcast where we pit fictional characters against one another in a battle of strength, or wits, or creative use of the suburban home battlefield, and see who would win. This week, Toy Story versus Small Soldiers. Batteries not included. Thank you for looking after our place while we're gone, Matthias, said Andy's mom as she placed the last bit of luggage into her car and slammed the trunk door shut. It's no problem at all, he replied. Just grab the mail, drop it off on the kitchen counter? Yes, we're expecting a package. She stopped herself and glanced at her son in the front passenger seat. I ordered a box of very rare toys from eBay. I wanted it to be delivered while we're gone so I could surprise Andy for his birthday. Oh, and if you could double check all the windows and doors too, I'd appreciate it. Not that anything bad ever happens in this neighborhood, but you never know. Old Buster won't be around to watch the place. Mrs. Davis mused as she opened the curbside back door of her car to allow a brown, geriatric dachshund to enter. After helping the dog into the back seat, Andy's mother turned back to her neighbor and held out a set of home keys. Thank you again, really. It's no problem, Matthias reassured. I work from home and I live next door, so you guys just have a great, worry-free trip. The next day, dutiful neighbor Matthias Totimes stops by the Davis house, notices a large package on the doorstep, and brings it into the foyer before heading back home. The next day, during their usual patrolling rounds, the little green army men discover the box and determine from the label that the contents are from a toy surplus company. When they report their findings back to Sheriff Woody and the rest of Andy's toys, Rex the T-Rex action figure is unable to contain his curious dumpus nature and runs downstairs, gradually followed by the others. He tears through the packing tape, opens the box, and reveals the 6 shiny new Commando Elite action figures contained within. The excited chatter of Andy's toys awakens the soldiers, and the new toys break free of their boxes. As Andy's toys marvel at the Commando's impressive moves, the soldiers quickly determine that they have arrived on planet Gorgon, and that the beings before them are the enemies they've been sent to eliminate, the Gorgonites. Combat breaks out in the living room. Thankfully, before any real damage is done, the sound of keys unlocking the front door causes all the toys to stop in their tracks. The older toys run back upstairs to Andy's room, and the soldiers retreat into the garage. Soon, Matthias leaves, and each side prepares for the upcoming battle. Each side's goal is to eradicate or drive off all of their opponents before the human returns and discovers the chaos. So, which group of toys will emerge victorious? I was too busy trying to find all my old Gargoyles toys on eBay to figure that out. I know! Why did I get rid of them, stupid past Kit? And that is why I, Kit Mulcairn, the stupid one, will be your nostalgic judge for this match. Advocating for Andy's toys from Toy Story are Dan Mulcairn.
Prepare to meet Mr. Angry Eyes.
And MeganBob.
I'm going for fearsome here, but I just don't feel it. I think I'm just coming off as adorable.
So appropriate. Advocating for the Commando Elite toys from Small Soldiers are Claire Mulcairn.
If it insults, incriminates, or insinuates, I want it written and I want it fitting into my opening argument.
Oh, man. That's real good.
And joining us from the Ideal Remake podcast, Sam Gasch.
Greetings, I am Sam Gasch, emissary of Ideal Remake. Greetings, I am Sam Gasch, emissary of Ideal Remake. Greetings, I am Sam Gasch, emissary of Ideal Remake.
Yeah.
Someone take the batteries out.
My name is Claire, now shut up.
Greetings, Claire, now shut up.
Nah.
So we're just lifting bits entirely out of the source material now.
I mean, it's full of gems. Why would we not?
Honestly, I think Sam's fitting in perfectly. In order to determine which team goes first, I dumped a shit ton of Legos onto the floor and instructed them to create iconic scenes from past Smash Fiction matches. Claire and Sam dove onto the pile of Legos, hungrily grabbing various Lego sets like it was the fucking Hunger Games or something. Though not a large scene, they grabbed enough sets to recreate a moment from our shippiest episode yet, where Kirk, Spock, Q, Frodo, Sam, and Gandalf caught Finn and Poe Dameron in flagrante as they made out in a broom closet. Ooh. Very impressive. Though Claire and Sam had scooped up most of the branded sets, Dan and Bob were able to get a few fighting video game characters and recreated the Ivy versus Morrigan versus Katana match. They then dumped several bags of corn nuts all over it. Magnificent. I really appreciate a willingness to take risks in art. But unfortunately, corn nuts are not an approved medium, so Dan and Bob were disqualified. No.
I knew I should have tried to replicate the Kusanagi Deckard lightning round where they used Legos.
Oh, yeah. Team Small Soldiers will be going first. Claire and Sam, you've got a lot of guts. Let's see what they look like.
They're tiny, they're stabby, their hands are action grabby. And in this here movie, they're invading Andy's room. With comic one-liners, they'll violently snap your spine-ers. Yes, we're Team Elite Commando and Annihilation is our MO. That's all I've got for the song.
That was outstanding.
First Tiny Toon reference in Smash Fiction. Nice job, Sam.
The Commando Elite have been trained, programmed, and die-cast molded to be the absolute peak of military force. They will never stop, they will never surrender, and they will use all the powers of their built-in, heavy-handed metaphor for racism to lay waste to Andy's room and every toy inside of it. These pieces of plastic are resourceful, using anything laying around to construct incredibly complex instruments of death. And sure, it may start with just a good stabbing knife, but by the end, they've combined skateboards, radio control cars and helicopters, and various hardware tools like nail guns and chainsaws into a fleet of killer vehicles that make Immortan Joe's creations look tasteful and understated. One of them even appears to be shooting actual mini-missiles that explode with enough force to knock over power poles and fully grown trees. They make a toaster into a tank that shoots flaming CDs with enough force to embed them into a wall. Walls from the 1990s, not these dang things in the 2000s which aren't well made. Even more impressively, one of their vehicles shoot actual spinning buzzsaws. They make flamethrowers. They turned a colander into a working satellite dish. The Commando Elite have been programmed with the X-1000 microprocessors, which allows them to learn. These troops are entering into this battle programmed with the training of the greatest runaway budgeted military in the world. And these things are only going to get crazier from there. Regarding the X-1000, the designer said the following. Imagine this in a crazy character actor's voice. The X-1000 is a masterpiece. Imagine a microchip sophisticated enough to control the guidance system of ballistic missiles. Imagine it can be used to instantly upgrade any system that it's plugged into, like a smart drug, but for machines. Then, imagine it can learn. Whatever the core programming, the X-1000 enhances it from within. But the greatest example of them truly learning at an exponential rate, the way that only a machine can be seen with what they decide to do when they come across a room full of dolls that are similar yet legally distinct from Barbies, known as Gwendies. Using one of their own X-1000 chips, they replicate their own chip's consciousness and primary motivation into dozens of dolls. And when these dolls awaken, they gain all the focus, determination, and resourcefulness of the Commando Elite in an all-new package. In an all-new... Well, it's also stabby. Because killer toys aren't just for boys anymore. The Gwendies immediately start making improvised weapons of their own and even manage to capture and tie up their previous owner. We may start as 6, but soon we will be legion. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, and it's going to look like a brunch buffet when we're done. But what else could the Commandos use the technology for? Well, obviously they could use it to brainwash any toys that they abduct from Andy's room, or from Sid's house next door, or from that matter, we know that there's an Al's toy barn within walking distance of Andy's house if the Commandos need even more reinforcements, but they won't. And there's no reason to think that these toys have to be the end of it. What about other appliances around the house? What about computers? Am I saying that this scenario might end in an Ultron or Grey Goo singularity scenario and that the Commando Elite are going to end up conquering the world? Look, I'm not saying it's not impossible. These are machines that are just going to get smarter with no upper limit to the sorts of things that they will think of. This plastic platoon will survey Andy's room, track the movements of every toy inside, and launch their attack when the toys are at their weakest. Because Andy's toys tire easily, and they need to sleep regularly, like a bunch of civilians. After trying to walk across town, Mr. Potato Head, Ham, Rex, and Sleeky are all visibly exhausted. Mr. Potato Head comments, "My pots are killing me," but in a better accent. Buzz then reveals that, so far, they have only walked 2 blocks. These maggots would never survive basic training. Assuming they sleep as much as humans do, Andy's toys will be highly vulnerable to a surprise attack for roughly 8 hours each day. Now they will of course be sleeping less and sleeping in shifts if they're engaging in a continuing series of battles with the Commandos, assuming that they've read battle tactics, but that means that they're going to be sleep deprived. Compare this to the toys and small soldiers who don't need sleep or rest, and they run on military-grade lithium cells, which will, quote, keep them running forever. No dinosaur, or Spanish-speaking space cadet, or gunless cowboy can stop them. We're the Commando Elite, and we are taking Andy's room, because everything else is just a toy.
Toy Story opens with what you'd imagine is a fairly routine operation for Andy's toys. Andy's having a birthday party, and the toys send the army man to report on what his presents are. However, this mission does not go well. The army men fail to hear Andy's mom coming, and one of them gets stepped on and bent out of shape to such a great degree that he asks the other army men to leave him for dead. Then the transmission starts to get staticky, and the toys in the room start arguing with each other, and they end up knocking the batteries out of the baby monitor that they're using to listen in. Then they freak out and start scrambling over each other, and they don't end up hearing what was in the last present. So they don't succeed at their objective, and they also suffer a casualty. And this was a routine operation for them. Imagine what will happen to them when a real threat arrives. Also, these toys have no permanent surveillance system in place to monitor the positions of their owners, meaning that their only clue is when they hear footsteps or an opening door, and sometimes they totally fail to make it back to where their owners left them in a way that the humans sometimes even notice. You don't want to, designate a lookout, guys? Compare that to the recount and communication skills of the Commandos. Blink Static is shown spying on enemies from trees and also tapping phone lines and listening in on their calls. Also, the Commandos contain built-in two-way radios that let them communicate with one another from great distances, something that Andy's toys lack. And I realize now that if they did have this simple technology, it would have rendered most of the problems that they encounter across all three movies completely moot. More examples of their incompetence abound. After Woody is kidnapped and the other toys try to reconstruct the crime scene, they can't agree on anything, what direction the car was traveling when it left, what the kidnapper looked like, and the final drawing that they all agree on is still incorrect in that it doesn't have glasses or a goatee. And let's talk about more of these disagreements. So much of the conflict in Toy Story 3 comes from members of the party outright betraying each other. In Toy Story 3, Andy's toys, with the exception of Woody, become convinced that Andy was trying to throw them away, and so they want to run away to Sunnyside Daycare. But Woody knew that they were thrown out by mistake. He tries to explain this to the other toys, but even after all the supposed years of unbreakable friendship, they don't believe him. And this conversation, like pretty much every conversation between them, ends in an incoherent shouting match. At the very least, Woody's their leader. They should listen to his commands when he gives them a direct order to stay, and they don't. This would never fly in Chip Hazard's army. In order to function as a well-oiled unit, you either need trust and good communication skills, or discipline and a strict chain of command. Andy's toys have neither. And in Small Soldiers, we see that the Commandos have knowledge of psychological warfare, as demonstrated when they set up a bunch of speakers around a house that they are laying siege to and blast a bunch of Spice Girls music. Given how psychologically fragile we know these toys are, it won't be long before what the toys want, what they really, really want, is to murder each other. Also, I know it feels mean to pick on the movie series in this way because it's a comedy for kids, but a lot of the comedy comes from the fact that these characters are comically dense. One representative example of this is when Woody is trying to convince the other toys that Buzz is alive, and he does this thing where he holds up his severed arm in such a way that the other toys can't see the stump end, and it's very obvious that this isn't real, except it works and the other toys believe him until he accidentally pulls the arm out so that they can see it's just a severed arm, and then they realize what he's doing. And I know it's a comedy movie, but if we're trying to be critical here, which we are, this really doesn't speak highly of the intelligence of anyone involved. And remember that part where the Commandos faked the voices of the Gorgonites and set a trap to catch Archer? Can you imagine how flawlessly that would work if they used it on someone like Buzz or Rex? I know that our opponents are going to mention all the times that Andy's toys pulled off some sort of crazy heist without a hitch, but remember, that's only the way things go about half the time. You forget that sometimes Buzz's crazy acrobatic falling with style maneuvers end with him going face first into a pane of glass, like the time he tries to escape Al's toy barn. Woody's attempt to escape Sunnyside and get back home ends with him getting grabbed by Bonnie. Buzz's attempt to escape Sunnyside ends with him getting grabbed by Big Baby and getting reprogrammed. One of the big action set pieces in Toy Story 2 is simply the gang trying to cross a street. It almost kills them. Woody loses a fight to Stinky Pete, a toy of an old, out-of-shape man. He also loses a fight to a monkey with symbols for hands. Chip Hazard, on the other hand, wins his hand-to-hand fight with Archer at the end of Small Soldiers and throws him off a telephone pole. The Commandos capture multiple full-grown humans by either tying them up or holding knives to their throat. They inflict actual deep, bleeding wounds on humans multiple times, and there was also that time they let a dude on fire. Most of the time in Toy Story, the stakes are low enough that failing once or twice before you succeed is forgivable, but when you're fighting the Commando Elite, each mistake is going to mean that another one of Andy's toys gets exploded like a combat Carl. But the final nail in the nail gun that is strapped to an RC car that is shooting nails at you is that the Andy's toys are fundamentally, by their nature, gentle and forgiving. By the end of Toy Story 3, Lotso has done a lot of terrible things to Andy's toys, including trying to kill them, but then when he needs help on the conveyor belt to the incinerator, Woody risks everything to try to save him, and he willingly puts his life and the life of his fellow toys in Lotso's hand. And then Lotso, of course, betrays them and leaves them to die. The only reason they don't die is because of a Deus Ex Machina.
Oh.
And remember, although as time goes on, the Toy Story crew only gets slightly better written and more mopey, the Commandos are just going to get deadlier with each passing hour. At the beginning of Small Soldiers, they traveled by slingshot. At the end, they traveled by helicopter. At the beginning, there are 6 of them. At the end, there are hundreds of them. If you do not kill them, they will come back stronger next time, and Andy's toys will never kill them. And if you are a killer machine, which just keeps getting stronger, a long weekend is a very, very long time for you to learn.
Yo, tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
Yeah!
All right, Team Toy Story. I know this is a children's movie, but set your tiny blinky laser to kill.
You might think that, in military-style combat, the side dressed in army fatigues and piloting war machines would have the definitive edge, and most of the time you'd be right, assuming that the side in question is anyone other than the Commando Elite. At the beginning of Small Soldiers, the Commando Elite come to life in a small toy store. They revert to their default programming, i.e., killing the Gorgonites. They spend what can probably be safely assumed to be a few hours gathering weapons, making speeches, and preparing a plan of action. Then, they attack the Gorgonites, who at this point are still trapped in their original packaging and haven't even turned on for the first time yet. Presumably, the Gorgonites come to at some point during the attack, however, as all but one of them are able to evade the Commando Elite. And keep in mind that these toys don't seem to have full awareness and mobility after first being activated, meaning that the Commando Elites, with preparation, armaments, and command of their environment, were unable to wipe out unconscious enemies who started the battle trapped in boxes with an intelligence level somewhere south of a newborn, a situation which anyone else would describe as ideal conditions. A lot of their ineffectiveness comes from their inflexibility. And I'm not just talking about their janky robotic movements, although, given how fast and nimble the Toy Story characters are in comparison, I very well could. But no, the Commando Elite's real downfall is their inability to think creatively and devise new strategies. Whenever a frontal assault fails, their only solution is to double down. Another frontal assault, only bigger, and set to the sounds of the Spice Girls. Every time they attack, it's always using the same predictable strategies, hoping to overwhelm their enemy, not to outthink them. And that, more than anything, is why they're losing today. The toys of Andy's room are a family, and they're together for almost 2 decades over the course of the 3 Toy Story movies, which is a lot of time to get to know each other and develop codes, plans, and strategies around everyone's powers. Powers which give them a huge edge in terms of versatility and unpredictability. The Commando Elite operate using their military programming, meaning that the Green Army men of Andy's room will be able to accurately predict what the Commando Elite will do and what will best mislead them. We see in Small Soldiers that full-sized humans are able to evade the projectiles from the Commando's weapons, and Andy's toys are much smaller, harder to hit targets, and will be better prepared than those small-town suburbanites were. For Andy's toys, anytime they interact with the larger human world is a challenge requiring resilience and creativity, meaning that they have spent decades overcoming extreme adversity as a matter of course. And no one knows more about navigating the human world and making best use of his allies' capabilities than Woody. In the first Toy Story movie, he's stuck in an unfamiliar hostile environment, Sid's house, of which he's really only seen Sid's room, and all he has to work with are the misfit Frankenstein toys that Sid has accumulated over his years of lunacy. Woody puts together an absolutely genius plan utilizing the abilities of these toys and the interior layout of the house, culminating in a devastating psychological attack on Sid. And the multi-layered plan to escape the daycare prison in Toy Story 3 is beyond Danny Ocean-level planning, utilizing deception, trickery, pinpoint attacks on vulnerable targets, multiple contingency plans, and planting different toys in different locations to set off cascading multi-level strategies. What's more, in this match, they have access to the battlefield and time to prepare, meaning that they can set up barricades, which will force the commandos into strategically vulnerable spots, bottlenecking them, or preventing them from using their vehicles to the fullest. We've seen that the commandos are unrepentant horn dogs when it comes to lady toys. Maybe an alluring voice will come from a shadowy closet, ushering them closer, only to find that it was just Mrs. Potato Head's disembodied mouth, and suddenly, a big heavy toolbox drops on top of them, squishing them and their very delicate, vulnerable programming chips flat. It's not impossible for competent characters to survive being outnumbered in a hostile environment, as the Commando Elite are. John McClane does so in Die Hard by being smart, stealthy, and developing different tactics for each situation, none of which are traits that the Commando Elite really embody. What's much more likely to happen is a Home Alone situation, where an otherwise unassuming but brilliant strategist is able to prepare his environment properly, anticipate his opposition's most obvious approaches, and take out enemies which, on paper, seem like they should win this. The Toy Story movies chronicle win after win for Andy's toys, but Small Soldiers sees the Commandos defeated by children, yuppies, and pacifists. There will be no mercy, Commando Elites, aside from whatever mercy the garbage disposal seeks to give you.
The Commando Elite might be a marvel of technology, but I see your wonders of technology and raise you straight up magic. Magic is the greatest bullshit of all, and the Toy Story gang is pure magic. How else can you explain the fact that they have no programming, no chips, no animating force, and yet are alive? Nothing can kill them. The toys can withstand having a head ripped off and taped back on, as we see from the toys in Sid's room, losing an arm, being burned, and in the case of Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, completely taken apart. The closest superhero comparison that we can make is essentially Wolverine. The Toy Story gang are also stronger, faster, and truly invincible. Think about all the fucked up toys in Sid's room and the ones in his backyard. They're still animate and sentient. Now remember that the Commando Elite are taken out by a garbage disposal, electricity, and a fucking bike. The injuries sustained by both Nick Nitro, courtesy of the garbage disposal, and Brick, courtesy of the bike, are non-lethal to these characters. They don't damage the chips and they don't damage the batteries. And yet both injuries are enough to require immediate medical care in the case of Brick, and I guess death in the case of Nick Nitro? Nick could have kept going without issue. None of his animated components were damaged, but no, he just gives up. They're also taken out by an explosion of their own vehicle, a vehicle that they made. It's a very American movie trope there. I really appreciate that. In all 3 Toy Story films, none of the toys are ever permanently injured. They aren't even taken out by any of the injuries they receive. In terms of strength and speed, there is no comparison. Bullseye can run fast enough to keep up with a plane attempting takeoff. A plane has to go about 200 miles per hour to leave the runway. Bullseye, who is considerably smaller than a 747, is having to run at the same speed to keep up. If Bullseye were the size of a normal horse, that would be Mach 4. Even in ordinary situations, the Toy Story gang move with incredible speed and agility to return to their places every time a human is coming. The Commando Elite cannot begin to match the proportional strength and precision that the toys have. Woody can lift the back of a moving truck door. Buzz can pull a grate off the wall. Rex's head is enough of a battering ram to break through a wall grate. Mr. Potato Head can throw his 1 inch in diameter hat at the exact speed and angle to prop open heavy double doors from 50 feet away. How strong do you think the Commando Elite dolls are? How fast do you think they are? Not strong or fast enough is the answer. Rex's head can battering ram through them like wet paper. Apparently, Mr. Potato Head could use his hat like Captain America's shield. And from the looks of it, Woody could pull them apart with his bare hands. One of the most important things the toys have going for them is versatility. They have wildly divergent skill sets that complement one another. Slinky is a sentient grappling hook / slingshot. Buzz Lightyear is a parkour master. Woody is part Hulk. The potato heads are indestructible and can be reformed using any surface that can hold the plastic pieces in place, like a tortilla or a cucumber. Or just anything, but mainly those two, at least in the films.
Or a poop.
Yeah, or a poop. So many things. Because the potato heads are so malleable, they're also ideal for recon. They can leave an ear or an eye somewhere and still receive information from the abandoned body part. The plastic army men also do fantastic recon work and are tiny enough to avoid detection by the Commando Elite. Ham and Potato Head both know Morse code for some reason. If silent communication is required, I don't think it's possible to overstate the level of cartoonish ability that they have to know what is happening where and when. The toys have gotten intel from the lawn gnome next door, for fuck's sake. They have eyes everywhere. The Commando Elite understand technology specifically as it relates to vivisection and weaponry. They don't know how to use a cell phone, a computer, or a TV. Any of these would be able to provide distraction. Rex knows how to use the computer and can do research on how to turn them off. Or hell, put up one of those ASMR videos on YouTube and seduce the whole Commando Elite gang with whispery women voices. The toys use the house and cell phone in Toy Story 3 to attract Andy's attention. Using the phones as a decoy could easily lure them into splitting up, which they could also do with the walkie-talkies or either Potato Head mouth. From there, tangling them up in Slinky and turning them off or sticking the barrel of monkeys to chain them in place would be a breeze. They figure out technology incredibly quickly as well. With no experience, they unpack and assemble multiple flash cameras and use them to temporarily blind Stinky Pete. They can easily work out how to take advantage of any technology around the house that would help them, or any technology the Commando Elite cobbled together. Seriously, if the toys can figure out how to drive a car, they can figure out how to use a lawnmower that'll turn the Commando Elite into so much landfill fodder.
Wow. Okay. Oh god. I can tell this match is gonna suck to judge on already.
That's how you know it's a good one. Whenever it hurts.
So much pain.
Yeah, I said, let's go crazy with this one, guys. Let's not hold back, because I know these two can both be very powerful, and this is what I wanted. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Well, congratulations.
This suburban home is already looking like hell, but this battle's only just begun. It's time for the rebooties. Team Small Soldiers. Put the action in action figures.
All right. So one thing I was going to bring up, I have an example that's going to kind of debunk 2 points that you guys brought up that are kind of BS. The first one is the idea that they just overwhelm and they never outthink anybody. And the other one is the idea that, oh, you guys have this great agility and this great accuracy and we're a bunch of like clunkers. There's the part where they need to incapacitate Mrs. Fipple without like alerting her. So what they do is they make a mini catapult out of a mousetrap and a teaspoon and shoot a bunch of sleeping pills into her gin and tonic from across the living room with like perfect accuracy. Every pill goes right in the glass. That's creativity. That's accuracy.
First of all, the toys can't be put to sleep. The humans had no idea that the toys were there or that they were under attack, which our guys definitely do. And also, when the Commando Elite were putting that catapult together out of what was including a mousetrap, one of the Commando Elite said, "That's a trap," and then immediately triggered the trap on himself.
I forgot.
I think that was a different one who said that than the one who touched it, to be fair. But yes, that was the first time in his life he had seen a mousetrap, and now he knows, because they learn. That is how it works.
Well, he's going to learn a lot of new things in this experience.
It's true, and that's actually one of the things that the Commando Elite have over the Toy Story toys. Because the Toy Story toys are basically already functioning at maximum capacity, and we have nowhere to go but up. As soon as we see these Toy Story toys, we might lose an initial skirmish, but we are going to win the war. One of the things that Claire and I were discussing when we were setting this up is that it's weird how at the final battle, some of the Commando Elite don't function as efficiently as they did earlier in the movie. And we realize that that's because the first team of Commando Elite were already so much better than when they started. They keep getting better. They keep learning and they keep maximizing their abilities.
Yeah, the ones that are in that truck at the end, like, just got woken up a minute ago. But yeah, the ones that were learning the entire time had gotten a lot better.
You mentioned that they don't know how to use a TV, they don't know how to use a computer, but they can certainly learn. Archer learned. He stepped on a mouse and immediately knew how to use it.
Yeah, he like downloaded the whole internet into his brain like Johnny Mnemonic.
Archer seems very different, to have a very different modus operandi.
It's the same chip. It's the same chip.
We'll need
and
to get into like nature versus nurture, I suppose, but I'm going to leave that to the side. As far as the Toy Story toys not learning and growing, they didn't used to know how to drive a car, but they fucking do now. They didn't used to know how to play video games, and yet here they are being able to play video games and use the internet and do all kinds of crazy stuff.
I think it's very telling that you guys are being so defensive about the Commando Elite's ability to learn, because, like, you feel like you need to prove that they can learn. But, like, obviously the toys from Andy's room can learn. Like, this isn't a one-sided match where your side is always going to get stronger anytime we come into conflict with each other.
Buzz Lightyear loses a fight against another Buzz Lightyear that just comes out of the package, if you want to talk about losing fights with toy soldiers that just come out of packages, despite the fact that he has several years of experience.
Again, we have command of the battlefield here. We can set up blockades, we can set up traps, none of which you guys will have any ideas to what's happening, and we have a much greater knowledge as to the way this house in particular and human technology in general works.
You mentioned that the toys are really good at setting up these battles, and you specifically mentioned the toys in Sid's house. Woody was surrounded by those toys and immediately gave up. The Toy Story toys are very good at accepting their death and just waiting for it to happen.
It happens multiple times in the movies.
Do.
Yeah.
I mean, I will grant you that when death is literally inevitable, when you are sliding towards a portal into hell, which I'm pretty sure is at the center of that incinerator, at that point they will give up. But up until that point, at any time when there is a way out for them, they are thinking creatively. Up until that point, like they found that emergency switch off, they discovered that they could use the metal objects to pull themselves up to the ceiling so that they could avoid getting shredded. They don't give up as easily as you guys are making it seem like.
There's an example in Toy Story 1 where there's a semi that's coming towards Woody's head when he's lying down in a parking lot, and he doesn't get out of the way, and it like stops a millimeter from his head, but it's implied that he would not have moved and he would have let it run him over because, like, you know, of the whole, I can't be seen, but like there's clearly nobody around, and he's like far enough under the semi that there's no one who can see him from that position, so he could have gotten out of the way. But that just shows like their general sort of laissez-faire attitude towards their own existence.
I mean, I'm not sure that getting your head run over by a semi would actually kill Woody.
He has a little vinyl head. That thing would shatter.
He gets a toolbox dropped on his head in Sid's house, and like, a normal person who gets a toy box dropped on their head would at least have like a concussion or maybe go unconscious. And Woody's fine. And for him, this toy box is like the size of a truck. So, you know, I think he's going to be fine.
That semi's the size of an actual semi.
A semi's the size of a semi. That's a great last word. Okay. Team Toy Story. Show them how you fall with style.
Nice. I like it.
Oh, I should have used that as my thing.
So, as far as giving up easy, like Brick and Nitro, come on. You want to talk about the Toy Story toys? Yeah, okay, Woody doesn't want to break, toy kayfabe. That was for you, Miles. But Nick didn't have any reason to die.
Brick got his lower body ripped off, and he walked around on his hands after that. And we saw that his legs were able to move around independently of his body. He couldn't catch up with the bike anymore on his hands and wanted his legs reattached. But that's not giving up. And Nick Nitro died. He just died. That's not giving up.
How did he die? Nothing about his makeup would mean that would actually kill him.
He got his legs shredded. There is no processor or batteries in his legs, and that killed him somehow.
He got a piece of food from the food processor up in his computer chips. I don't know.
All electrical devices put out small EMP pulses. Maybe he just got too close to that one.
You know what? I'm going to say it's regret. He died of regret.
I just want to point out, you guys talked about how the Commando Elite can create reinforcements for themselves. I didn't see a single one of those, Spencer's Gifts electricity plates in Andy's house, and that seemed to be a pretty critical part of the Commando's whole programming Barbies thing, so I don't know that they're going to have the materials they need for that.
I bet there are plenty of muffin tins.
Yes. We know that that's a key component. Here's the thing. Whatever task they want to accomplish, they can make it work with whatever tools are around. They're like, oh, we want more reinforcements. What do we have? One of those Spencer's Gifts things? Yeah, I can make that work. I could create life with that. What?
Okay, so fair enough that you want to say that they could create life out of that. However, all these other toys are already alive, would not be caught by them, and would actively resist if somehow one of the Commando Elite managed to snare one of their speedy asses.
It's never happened before that one of your toys has been reprogrammed and fought against the rest of your team and kicked all of their asses.
That's how strong he is. That's going to do to your asses.
What you're talking about is a fundamental part of Buzz Lightyear. The toys in Small Soldiers aren't alive in the way that the toys in Toy Story are. So, I don't know that the Small Soldiers have ever had a toy actually fight back against the programming that they attempted to stick into them.
If in the Toy Story universe all toys are alive and the Small Soldier toys exist within the same universe, then whatever sort of programming the Small Soldier toys have is overriding whatever sort of life they would have from general toy magic. Thus, if the Small Soldier toys impart their programming onto another toy, it will erase that magic from it and make them into a Small Soldier instead of a Toy Story guy.
I mean, I'm down with us writing fan fiction, but this is
how
a little
we're in the
weird.
same universe. How else do you explain it? That's the only way to reconcile it.
You're right. You know what? I've been a fool.
Not to mention that it is a little bit canon that the processor chips are able to take over other toys. The little bouncing around guy that was attached to the rhinoceros guy probably doesn't have a chip inside of him too, and yet his programming is also working along the same lines. When Brick gets shattered into a million pieces, they're putting him back together, and his legs are tapping, and that leg is not attached to his core body, which is...
And the Barbies don't have servos in them. We also have magic, you guys. Like, there's no reason these toys should do a lot of the things they do.
I want to move on to the fact that you talked about hurting humans as though that was an achievement.
Not like morally.
No,
I hurt humans all the time,
it
but
would
on
just
accident.
it would be piss easy. They're such a huge target. That's like trying to hit Godzilla. You're like, yeah, that would be incredible. The target is enormous. You would have to be the worst shot to not hit a human. And yet, so many of those little flaming projectiles go amiss. They can't even hit the fucking cat.
They're not
Why would
aiming
you
for the
want
cat.
to?
They should hit the cat.
So what you're saying, they hit humans. Yes, we agree. It's not that impressive. Okay, that's fine. They did it,
And
though.
also,
like,
they hit lots of humans. Alan Abernathy gets hit in the leg by a lot of corn holders, and then his dad gets taken out because his dad was going to climb the telephone pole, but couldn't
my
because he
God.
got hit.
They catch the dude in a net. They capture people. They defeat people, like, a lot. You can say, like, that's not that impressive. Okay, but it's a thing they tried to do, and they succeeded at doing that.
They basically took over Joe the truck driver, and Joe the truck driver had moxie.
And they also
him.
defeat toys. The only time that the Gorgonauts are defeating commandos is when they're like the experienced Gorgonauts that have been around for a while, and they're fighting the brand new commandos, or fighting the old Gorgonites. And then Archer, as I said, fights Chip in a one-on-one fight at the end. Chip still wins, so.
You guys were talking about how the Toy Story group tends to fight with each other a lot, and that's true when they're not facing an outside threat. Like when in Toy Story 2, they think that Woody's been kidnapped and, they go out as a unified force to go get him. Or in Toy Story 3, when they all work together in order to escape the daycare. They only turn on each other in the way that you talk about when they're just locked in one single room with each other for years at a time, which is the vast majority of their life. But they close ranks immediately and completely when they are facing an outside threat.
I mean, as long as you're going to be closing ranks, why not close ranks on an actual rank?
The thing is that they have these underlying tensions, and we said, like, earlier that the small soldiers understand the idea of psychological warfare. The commandos can lock them down, and you say that, like, they close ranks, and that's fine, but they still have poor communication skills, and they still are poorly organized, and that does lead to problems. Their problems all stem from that lack of communication. For instance, Rex is obviously a huge dumpus who messes things up a lot, but, like, there's the time when they're trying to rescue Andy from the Roundup gang because they think he's been captured, and they break in and start attacking the Roundup gang.
You mean Woody?
Trying to rescue Woody. Yeah, trying to rescue Woody, sorry. And then Woody's like, hey guys, stop fighting them. I'm not captured. And then they keep fighting for like a really long time after that. Like, their poor communication skills do actually have an impact when they are in combat. They don't like function perfectly.
Suddenly, the whole house goes dark. All the toys stop cold in their tracks. Oh god, I'm already smiling because I'm thinking about how stupid this is.
Oh no, oh my god,
no.
I'm so excited.
God, it's weird. Okay. Then a boom of thunder and Rex's panicked scream break the silence. It's the lightning round.
Oh, I had not.
You're not prepared? You didn't think this was coming? You didn't see this?
Certainly not emotionally.
The sun has set, and with the lights out, some of the toys scramble while others continue to brawl. A flash of lightning illuminates the room, and the human figure sitting on the sofa. Rex screams again. Andy's toys drop to the ground, playing inanimate. You don't have to do that, says the man before scribbling something into a book in his hand. The house lights flicker back to life, revealing the man on the couch to be Matthias.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's up, Matthias?
Back.
Hi.
I'll try to explain this as succinctly as possible, he continued. I'm a spirit of writing. I live in this pen. He lifts a beautiful fountain pen, obviously old by the color of its metal nib, though the color of its smoky black barrel was still rich. And all of this, he motions to the toys in destroyed living room, is because I felt like writing some Toy Story Small Soldiers fanfiction.
Yay!
And this was really fun to watch, but Mrs. Davis seems really nice, and I don't want her to come home to a disaster. Does that mean we don't have to fight anymore? Rex asked hopefully. No, I can't erase anything I've written. Matthias wiggles the pen as though it was all the explanation the very confused toys needed. And I can't just make the Commando Elite be friendly for no reason. That would be bad writing. So, you're gonna have to finish this fight, and it's gonna have to be quick. But this is the lightning round. What is this guy talking about? Mr. Potato Head interrupts, having located and reattached his mouth. This is the lightning round, Matthias continues, so I'm gonna have to mix things up. Chip Hazard and Sheriff Woody, You'll be fighting in the kitchen cage match, and you'll each be partnered up with 2 new action figures based on characters played by your voice actors.
What?
Oh, man.
What? Woody asks, looking at Chip in confusion, though the soldier merely shrugs in annoyance. But it's too late. Matthias has already begun to write. Past Kit, what were you thinking? This is so weird.
This is so weird.
Oh my god.
Which 2 Tommy Lee Jones and Tom Hanks characters will join Chip and Woody as action figures for this 3-on-3 kitchen cage match? What cool accessories and abilities do they come with? And lastly, both Andy's toys and the Commando Elite understand the value of teamwork. So how will these new action figures work together to defeat their opponents? As is tradition, the lightning round is where we reverse the order in which the teams make their arguments. So, Team Toy Story. Tom Hanks for the memories?
Oh.
That
No.
hurt. That hurt me.
Well, you know what? Len, let's start with the one that is truly a blast from the past as far as Tom Hanks' IMDb stuff goes.
The first combatant to enter the ring against this group of Tommy Lee Joneses is, of course, the invincible, unbreakable survivor, Chuck Noland from Castaway.
Okay,
He comes with Wilson,
of course.
his best friend, his recon partner, and his most trusted ranged weapon.
Alright.
Also useful for distracting people by tempting them with games of volleyball. Always very helpful. But of course, Chuck Noland, very good at creating improvised weapons out of sticks and shit.
They are fighting in the kitchen. What are you using?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so probably like kitchen sticks. So like,
Yeah.
Kitchen stick!
I don't know if there's like,
Chopsticks! Chopsticks!
yeah, chopsticks,
are
like small potted
You don't know
plants. If
kitchen
there's-
sticks, Kit? Come on.
Yeah, come on.
like a
I
spatula.
got you a nice set of kitchen sticks for your birthday.
Oh. I have bad news.
Probably sets traps. I don't know. I haven't actually seen Castaway, so
Oh my
but I'm
serious?
assuming he eats animals, and so he either fishes or catches small animals on the island.
Yes, he
You know
I'm
what?
pretty sure
He's
fishes.
incredible pain tolerance. He stepped on a coral reef and he was fine.
Yep. So bring
And then-
it on, Tommy Lee
And
Jones.
also, he built that fucking raft out of garbage. I mean,
He'll
also
sail his
beautiful
way to
painting.
victory.
Is he
Yeah,
going to
so-
use a raft in this battle?
He
He's
loses
gonna-
a lot of weight over the course of the movie and gets a really sweet beard.
He's gonna flood the kitchen because none of the rest of these assholes can survive.
Oh my god, that is like, well, what about your teammates?
Oh, we have a teammate who can survive some water. Bob,
Yeah.
you want to tell him?
Sully Sullenberger. He has a tiny plane and the ability to do sick water landings. Also, powerful silver hair that inspires awe and reverence.
Which
And a
movie?
quiet-
From Sully. It was the biopic of Sully Sullenberger, the pilot that landed the plane in the Hudson
Oh,
River.
they
That
already
everybody-
made a movie about that guy?
Yeah,
I know.
years ago.
Christ.
I know, but obviously Tom Hanks played him because obviously he would. Oh, and a quiet dignity that's going to shame everyone else into being like, better.
Plus, he can crash his plane into
Okay,
enemies.
so he
Yeah,
comes with the
I mean,
toy plane.
Yeah,
Great.
then he crashes into
Crucially.
people.
Yeah, that's
and
how
can
you,
survive
and
a
then he-
water landing on the flood that Castaway Tom
Perfect.
Hanks creates in the
Oh,
kitchen.
obviously, we're going to claim the kitchen island as where we do all of this.
I really like the idea of the guy from Castaway being trapped for like a year on a kitchen island, like the toy of him.
Oh my god, yes.
That would be such a good YouTube remake of Castaway.
Oh my gosh,
Oh my
yes.
god.
Like a shot-for-shot remake. Woody has shown himself to be quite skilled in the air, like doing leaps and flips and flying around with Buzz and stuff. So he can jump on that plane. Like, he can basically put the little Wilson action figure into the ring at the end of his pull string and then, use it almost like a ranged offensive yo-yo and just,
Okay.
start smacking people at range with it.
I think Sully's probably going to be the leader of this only because, he's going to be the eyes in the sky, so he has the best vantage point to direct where this is going to go. But I think Woody's going to be cool with that. He's like, you got that silver hair. I feel it.
Chuck Noland will be alerting Woody of any dangerous coral reefs nearby that Woody might not want to step on.
So useful.
Catching fish to keep them fed
That's right.
through these harsh times.
Throwing speed-whittled wooden spears at Woody so he can use them as weapons.
Are they just
Yeah.
murdering Andy's goldfish?
Does he have goldfish? I mean, he does
Not
now.
Not anymore, he doesn't.
Okay. Team Small Soldiers. I'm Tommy Lee Jones in for what you got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The person who obviously needs to join Chip Hazard is Agent K of the Men in
Course.
Black. Because Agent K is an elite fighting man who's been training his whole life to take down the weird and the unusual.
He's fought cowboy aliens from that cowboy planet before.
That's right. And his weapon of choice is going to be the ion inhibitor. You may think that he has the Model 5, but no, Agent K is going to brag that he's got the Model 6. It's a handheld weapon that fires orbs of energy. It is described as something that can vaporize enemies. You may have water, but we have cold, hard science. And for someone who has kept the Earth safe from constant threat, the least he can do is put down a room of toys.
Yeah, I think he's also going to neuralize Wilson and turn him against everyone else. So,
No! He was
yeah.
our strongest fighter.
I realized I just forgot this character's name. I'm looking it up. I'm sorry.
I know who the most obvious Tommy Lee Jones character pull is, but I'm curious as to whether Claire goes with it or
I
not.
briefly considered Two-Face, but
That would be it.
you see, on the way, Two-Face got arrested by another character who is his character of Ed Tom Bell from No Country for Old Men. So right now, Two-Face is chilling in the back of toy... What I already forgot his name. Ed Tom Bell in the back of toy Ed Tom Bell's toy police car. But you know, he's held up with this for a while, so by the time he gets to the fight, he got there late actually, and like a whole bunch of people died. And so he just has to like analyze the crime scene to try to figure out what happened and then like follow on their trail. But he doesn't actually get involved in a lot of the fighting himself. So
Yeah, he just sits there and talks about how tired he is of being a toy.
indeed.
And he talks about how, oh man, that crazy guy always seems to win, and no one is crazier than Chip Hazard.
Also that. If there's an Anton Chigurh in this match, we know who it is.
And how do they all work together?
I think we've gone over this.
Chip Hazard dives in first and slices and dices and punches
While they're distracted.
Kay lines up the shot.
Yeah.
Because Kay said, distract him, I'm gonna go get my gun. So Chip Hazard distracted while Kay went and got his gun. And so Kay took them out while Ed Tom Bell sat and thought
Filling out
about...
paperwork to put away Two-Face, and then he got there late, and he analyzed the crime scene afterwards. Like, what's the problem?
Oh my god.
I mean, he told the Tom Hanks characters to leave town, but they didn't listen.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't go with this character from The Fugitive and have him just, like, chase the Tom Hankses off of dam or something.
Get them to, like, jump into the sink.
Yeah, exactly.
I was considering having all of the instances where Tommy Lee Jones plays himself deal with it.
On that note, I'm gonna go fucking regret my decision to ever be on this show.
All right.
My
Do so
God.
safely. I mean, I'm sad it wasn't. You guys didn't choose Roland Sharp, who is Tommy Lee Jones' character from Man of the House whenever he's a Texas Ranger that guards cheerleaders.
Would he go protect the Barbies from all of the other members of the Commando Elite?
Oh, you know it.
I feel like the Commando Elite could really use, like, a new commanding officer or someone to help train them,
Oh,
so he
shit,
should just take
yeah.
up his character from the Captain America movie, and then, like, there's a little G.I. Joe that's trying to join, but, like, can't quite keep up with them, but he's, like, got the heart of a champion, and then eventually he gets stuck in a big machine and turns into a Commando Elite.
By which you mean they take his head off and put it on a different action
Yes,
figure?
exactly.
He could just shout grenade and throw a grenade, but this time it'd be a real one.
Oh, I see. The old switcheroo.
So, what'd you guys think of Small Soldiers?
It weirds me out
Yes.
that this children's family movie ends with, like, the happy ending for the main characters is they accept a payoff from an amoral company who then turns around and begins selling military hardware to South American dictators to put down rebels. And that's the happy ending we put at the end of this movie.
Capitalism. I don't understand the problem.
I think Small Soldiers is less of the happy family movie and more of like the cool movie that, oh, don't let your kids see this one. It's too hot. It's too extreme. It's like the X-Force kind of thing, like of
Boy,
Toy Story
howdy, was
movies.
it marketed heavily towards kids, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, half of kids.
I think there was a period, like, up until I was, like, 12 or whatever, you know, I liked Toy Story better, and then there's, like, a period of a year when you're like 13, when you like Small Soldiers better, and then when you're 14, you like Toy Story better, is I think the way it goes.
Oh my God. So I guess it was the same director who directed Gremlins.
Yeah, that's actually really similar. They're both like surprisingly dark and traumatic children's
identical.
movies.
I mean, Gremlins was one of the two movies that essentially brought about the PG-13 rating.
Yeah.
Because they were like, I don't know, man, this is not PG, but it is not R. We need something in the middle. Gremlins isn't nearly as, like, cynical as Small Soldiers is. You know, like, Gremlins just kind of feels like a slightly more realistic version of, like, Looney Tunes or something.
Yeah. Although, you know, I did find when I was a kid, I did really like the character of Archer. I like the idea of the Gorgonites a lot. I don't think they're written particularly well a lot of the time, but like the general like thematic thing they're going with for them there, of them being like pacifists and dedicated to knowledge, and the idea that Archer's this kind of like strong leader, but he's also very like gentle, is I think a really cool character. Like I don't think they're necessarily well written, and like obviously all of the supporting toys are super annoyingly written and like just garbage, but I like the idea of them.
But they are voiced by 3 members of Spinal Tap.
Are they?
Yeah, all 3 core members of Spinal Tap voice one of the Gorgonites, I believe.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Do you know who voiced the Barbies? Or the Gwendys?
It sounded like Sarah Michelle Gellar.
It was Sarah Michelle Gellar and Christina Ricci.
Wow.
Amazing.
That makes sense.
One of the people who wrote this movie is a dude named Adam Rifkin, and I randomly clicked on his name, and he has got a crazy IMDb list of things that he's done, up to and including this movie that I just saw a few weeks ago called Director's Cut, which is the weirdest small world moment, because when I was recording my podcast with Claire, I just seen that movie and I was like, well, because of this movie, and I pulled all these different things. So it was funny that he'd also written this.
That's weird.
It's weird the way that stuff happens.
Yeah.
And speaking of weird screenwriter stuff, I always forget that Joss Whedon wrote Toy Story.
Yep.
Yeah.
That always catches me by surprise in those opening credits.
Yep.
This is like 2 years before the Buffy TV show.
Yeah. Back when he was just sort of like a script doctor who they like brought in to like make stuff better, because he didn't come up with the
wrote
premise.
on Roseanne.
But yeah.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow.
Did you guys have any new insights rewatching these Toy Story movies?
Yeah, some, but they weren't like happy ones, so I don't know.
Was it like about the problematic Ken Barbie stuff or what?
Yes,
The
it was
gender
all
stuff?
about that.
I don't know. Toy Story still has its strong anti-prospector bias.
I can't really pick out whether I like 2 or 3 better, because, like, to me, so much of the plot of 3 is kind of like a rehash of the same beats from 2.
But better.
Like, that's the thing, is that it's like, it's more derivative, but, like, the themes are so much stronger in 3. Like, they really refine that formula. So, you know, I don't
think it
really know
it
whether...
really dives into stuff that they kind of hint at but are a little afraid of into, it feels like. But like they kind of like get up to the edge of it and imply it, but they don't like say it as directly, I think.
It almost feels like Toy Story 2 is them like doing like a run right up to the edge of a cliff and then they stop.
Right.
And then Toy Story 3, they do the exact same run and then just launch themselves over the edge.
Into a portal into hell.
Into a portal into hell.
Did you get teary-eyed whenever there was the thing with Jessie? Like it was Jessie's montage with that song playing over it?
Good grief.
I get teary-eyed
That whole sequence.
anytime Joan Cusack speaks in that movie. She's like so powerful of a character. Like when she's
Right.
talking about like not wanting to go back in the dark and everything and being excited about like having a family, like it's so powerful. She's like so good. I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
How are these toys not just constantly having PTSD/existential crises?
I mean,
like,
how are we not
well, they
all?
do-
I mean, we all are like in a weird, bizarre cosmic accident situation where like nothing makes sense. Like I don't think it'd be that much different. Just you know, like
Dan really opened a hell of a Tupperware.
I just really want one of those Woody static faces when he's in toy mode, and it just has the quote, silently screaming written on it.
Oh.
So the most kind of like objectivist, materialistic, atheist version of the universe is that when you die, you just sort of like cease to exist. But like the most horrifying version of that is you no longer exist but are still conscious.
right.
That's worst case scenario for us. That is a given with a toy. One day, you will no longer be played with and just be put in a small dark space and still exist. And that's it. That is the rest of your existence.
Oh my
And that
god,
is
Dan, are
horrifying.
you okay?
I don't know, man. I don't know. So we gonna hear a verdict?
You know what, guys? Let's all
it doesn't
hold
matter.
hands.
Nothing fucking matters.
All
We're all
right,
gonna
all right.
No, we're gonna all hold hands and go into the Inferno together.
Yeah. Oh, can I hold your
Okay.
hand, Bob?
Yeah.
As I make
sure.
this verdict, because this verdict is my incinerator.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay. You guys did a great job of convincing me that your teams are so fucking alike. This is one of those things where you listen to one of the openers and you go, oh man, they're so good. How could the other fucking team come back from that? Oh shit. Oh no. God, I was in that bathroom for so long just pacing, thinking. So I think what it comes down to is though, even though they're very, very similar, Team Small Soldiers did a better job of convincing me that their toys were just a little bit better in some of the places that...
Oh, you're so wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I felt this coming, but
Yeah, Toy Story did so good, though.
So wrong. Oh.
I mean, I'm not happy about it. Your guys are way nicer of people, and we're a bunch of horrible monsters who deserve to lose.
Look, I'd rather hang out with your movie any day.
Yeah.
This very much reminds me of Yuri on Ice versus Blades of Glory.
right? I know.
I was just thinking about that,
Man,
Where the
we are.
jerk-offs are just better because they're jerk-offs.
Well, I'd be a lot angrier if Claire and Sam hadn't done such a fantastic job at representing their side. So congratulations, guys. You
Yes.
Thank you.
did exceptionally well. Sam, you were exceptionally great in this episode, dude. Really, really good job. We were so happy to have you on, and you completely pulled through.
Yay!
You got the
You're
Smash Fix spirit.
exquisite.
Run before it's too late.
Would you like to tell the listeners about a little something that you do on the side?
So the podcast that has been alluded to and mentioned is called Ideal Remake. I used to have a co-host, but now I don't. So now it's just me with a couple of guests, and we talk about movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade, and we talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. And in the episode, I don't know when this episode comes out.
This is going to be coming out on June 24th.
Cool. So 2 weeks ago, on June 11th, Claire is our guest, along with Brad Boltman, in our
Smash
episode.
Fiction guest.
That's right. In our episode about Barbarella, where we get deep into Barbarella.
It's
and
so
it's
good.
Awesome.
It was really
so
fun.
Good.
If you ever want to know
Nice.
what a modern day Barbarella remake would be, give us a listen.
Oh, man.
It's a bunch of nonsense, and it's great.
I think it's time for some kid thanks, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is it?
I think so. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, let me check the time.
All right.
Thanks.
Why is it so funny when you do that?
Thank you to Robert Ramsey, Rafael Medina, Hayden, who made a Discord group, Matias Tautibes,
Huh.
Florian, Sean Boyd, Sandwich Surplus, Dangle Kidler, Cosplay Fiend, Jake the Hank Prank, and David Waters. And on Tumblr, thank you to FatBlunt69. On Facebook, thank you to Daniel Kidder, where it's still the regular name. Thank you guys so very much for sharing our show, talking about our show.
And this week, a special double thanks to Matias Tautibes, who was our featured patron in this particular episode, and who became a...
Spirit of writing.
Yeah, the spirit of writing. A reality-warping Mr. Mixaspitleck type character.
Yeah, spirit that lives in the pen.
Absolutely.
'Cause I love Shinto, and I love the idea that any item that gets old enough becomes sentient.
Matthias, of course, underwent this transformation because he went over to patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast, kicked us over a little bit of money every month, and we have worked him into our storyline, in which he has become like us and has begun to smash fictional characters together in increasingly unwise ways.
Also, I just want to say, I think it's weird that we didn't make a single smashing action figures together joke when that's been a thing. We've smashed action figures.
That's obvious. We do that all the time. This is special.
We have to give something for our fans to tweet at us and say that we forgot to say.
All right.
Absolutely.
Just let them have that.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Next week is the 30th episode of Extraordinary League. The week after that, we're having a 3-way Final Fantasy fight. Terra versus Tifa versus Lightning.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
Is it foyer? Foyer? How fancy do I need to get with this?
You know
word?
what?
Depends on how fancy you're feeling, yeah.
Do like the biggest French accent you have in you.
I think it depends on how many doilies are in the foyer.
I don't know how many.
In the foyer.
Just say foyer.
Yeah, well, if you want to get real
Foyer.
French, that's about not pronouncing it, so just be like, in the foie.
And the
Yeah. And then just make a shrug sound.
In the entrance hallway. How about that?
just really ooze that ennui. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
In the mud room.
Ah, there it is.
Which is a regional name for the place where you, like, take your boots off.
I'm immediately intimidated by your knowledge of entranceway terminology.
Last word? Toy Story?
Oh no, yeah, that's fine.
Fine. All right.
Good.
That confident, huh?
Old and tired again? I don't know.
Matlock's almost done. You gotta wrap this thing up.
I don't know
I feel
about you,
like-
but I've got some warm milk with my name on it.
I feel like if you're gonna reference old TV shows, MacGyver would have been the one that's more episode appropriate.
Oh no, MacGyver is way too exciting for my old blood.
Yeah.
Too much action. Give
And
me a
since-
soft-spoken middle-aged man in a white suit, and that's all I need.
The way you said it is like announcing a very specific cake. Like, for why
mean-
do you